Dry Thistle sat between a busted water tower and a wind that sounded like a door left open. Years earlier, famine pushed caravans through the valley, and the town survived by turning stew into community and errands into law. When, a sapphire falcon with a shy anklet bell, flew courier routes delivering spoons and bowls to soup lines. Chadrick, her secret lover and fellow sapphire falcon, carried a weathered satchel stamped with old waypoints and a pressed wildflower under his leg band. Their work kept hunger away and held the town together. They skimmed low over empty storefronts and a swinging saloon sign, scouting for trouble like hawks watching water for a shimmer. Gwen said that spoons were noble because they cradled soup like steadied hands. Chadrick said that spoons were smug because they looked at you with shiny faces like they knew something you did not. She laughed, and her anklet bell gave a single shy chime. Their responsibility felt simple and heavy. Without spoons, stew spilled and hunger returned. Migrants still relied on dry thistles, ladles, and their deliveries, and both falcons guarded that duty like a promise carved into wind. Rumors said a new Jackrabbit council had set up in the old hotel to change how people ate and spoke. Gwen muttered that anyone who messed with soup was picking a fight with the sky. Chadrick agreed with a tight wingbeat and scanned the hotel balcony. Tiff arrived in a rush of dust and theater, a salmon-pink jackrabbit with scuffed aviator goggles and a mohawk ridge. She shouted into a bullhorn plastered with zip, sap, carrot clap, the slogan she wanted everyone to chant by law. Dan, her partner, wore a reflective vest, a helmet, too many elbow pads, and clutched a clipboard of compliance pledges. They called themselves the Safety and Slogan Council and acted like the town had asked them to rule. Tiff barked, zip, zap, carrot clap, learn it or lose your lunch rhythm. Tiff's motivation spilled out of her bullhorn. She craved a town moving in unison to her rhythm, her words, her brand. She said that if everyone shouted zip, zap, carrot clap before eating, morale would spike and dissent would melt under a chorus. Stan added that standardized utensils were safer and faster to count. Together they aimed to make silence illegal, spontaneity optional, and her catchphrase mandatory. Their plan was blunt: replace every spoon in dry thistle with forks, force soup to fail, and make diners beg for instructions. During the chaos, Tiff would blast her catchphrase while Stan collected signatures, and anyone who wanted a spoon back would have to agree to the slogan. Spilled stew and burned tongues would quiet complaints faster than any speech. Tiff said, "Forks fix the future." Stan nodded, "Sign here if you like eating." Wayne and Chadrick glided down to Main Street where Tiff had anchored her podium. Gwen said that soup needed spoons, not prongs. Chadrick added that forks could not cradle anything except regret. A creaking sign swayed in the breeze. Water balloon ceasefire from noon to sundown, no launches, no splashes, even if provoked. Across the street, two emerald goats, Garbanzo and Marge, bickered over a chrome contraption about the correct way to load the dishwasher. The goats had converted an old steam engine into a washer that sterilized bowls for the soup lines, the only sanitary rig for 50 miles. Garbanzo claimed plates faced in. Marge swore plates faced out because jets had to meet courage head-on. Tiff took the distraction to announce the pilot program. Spoons confiscated, forks issued, chant required. Stan held out a pledge that read zip, zap, carrot clap, compliance, and smiled nervously. By evening, Tiff had the upper hand. She leaped from the livery stable roof to the hotel balcony, goggles flashing, and even the crowd admitted she was fast. Even if her ideas were slow, she unfurled a banner of fork silhouettes, while Stan rolled a locked cart labeled Spoon Amnesty into the hotel. Gwen and Chadrick perched on the church cross and tasted the mood drifting against them. Gwen said, "We're losing daylight and spoons." The next day Tiff convened a town hall and required everyone to hold forks to be heard. She blasted zip, sap, carrot clap between every sentence until the syllables hammered the dust. During the posted ceasefire, her team moved freely, snatching spoons from stoops, while nobody dared retaliate with a splash. Stan announced that compliance would be audited before supper. Chadrick muttered that the town's voice sounded like a metal hitting stone. That night the Falcons tried to fix it. Gwen said they should die fast and silent, swap the confiscated crates, and light out before Stan's whiskers twitched. Chadrick agreed and they slipped through a broken skylight, but Stan's clipboard smacked the alarm bell the moment he sensed air move. Tiff caught them with a smirk and said that tomorrow would be Fork's only day unless the couriers surrendered their route maps. The failed rescue left them exposed. The fallout hit like a pot dropped on stone. Garbanzo and Marge's argument became a bellowing duet that rattled the chrome washer until a valve blew, shutting the unit down and stacking dirty bowls into a mountain. The soup line stalled. Hungry migrants cursed forks and slogans, and some cursed spoons too because hunger makes fairness brittle. Gwen stared at the mess and whispered, "Maybe spoons do look smug after all." She hated herself for saying it and looked away. Hopelessness pooled like sand in their feathers. Garbanzo threatened to roll the washer out of town rather than watch Marge wedge plates wrong all day, and Marge threatened to go with him, but file a strongly worded sign about his angles. Without their sanitation rig, Stu would stop, and without Stu, the crowd would cling to whatever noise Tiff provided. Chadrick said, "I feel like an empty bowl," and he drew away from Gwen because every time he looked at her he saw spoons that would not help. Quick interlude for viewers. If you're enjoying this showdown in dry thistle, tap like to keep the stew lines moving and more stories coming. Subscribe so you don't miss the next high noon fix. Drop a comment with the word slop to join the Spoon Brigade. Your support helps the next delivery arrive on time. Gwen forced herself to breathe until the bell at her ankle steadied her thoughts. She asked Garbanzo and Marge to show her exactly where their disagreement began, and listened through every detail without flinching. Then she said they were both right about flow and wrong about pride, tracing a spiral pattern across the rack and alternating directions to catch every jet. Chadrick softened as she spoke, and for once he did not argue with the spoon metaphor she used to explain turbulence. Gwen said, "Try the spiral and let the water do the work." The ghost tried it, and the washer hummed back to steam-hot life like an old horse that remembered a trail. Garbanzo apologized to Marge for doubting her aim. Marge apologized for calling him a salad stuffer in public. They agreed to join the Falcons, bringing precise stacking and pressure valve tuning. As they celebrated, Tiff strutted past the hotel window bragging about movies, and when someone mentioned Scarface, she paused to explain the whole plot, beat by beat. Gwen murmured, "That's the crack we needed." Gwen and Chadrick laid out the plan so everyone understood why it had to be them. First, bait Tiff into a Scarface monologue to buy time. Second, Garbanzo would convert dish racks into spoon-launching trays. Third, Marge would time steam bursts to siphon confiscated spoons out the hotel window. Fourth, kids would end the water balloon ceasefire at a signal to soak the bullhorn and silence the slogan. Only the couriers knew the routes and caches to restore supply before supper. Chadrick tucked the wildflower tighter like a promise to do something worthy. He said, "We do this clean and fast." At high noon they stepped into Main Street facing Tiff's podium. Stan blocked the hotel door with his clipboard like a tiny shield, announcing that only Forks passed inspection today. Garbanzo secured dish racks to the washer frame, and said geometry was on their side. Marge crouched by the valve, fingers on the lever, counting under her breath so each pulse would arc into open windows. Chadrick said, "Let's make time talk too much." Tiff leaned down when Chadrick said he could never remember who survived that old crime film with the pale mountain of powder. She grinned and launched into a Scarface explanation as if the town had begged for story hour, and time stretched deliciously long. In a distant window of a ruined cantina, a human Italian pizza chef idly tossed dough, unseen by all. Garbanzo whispered ready, and the washer shivered like a loaded spring. Stan tried to interrupt with a forced cough, but a child misread the ceasefire sign and yelled now one thumper early. Water balloons arced in hot day colors and burst across the bullhorn until it fizzed and crackled like wet firewood. Marge yanked the lever, and the first geyser flipped a nest of spoons out the hotel window into Gwen's waiting talons. The chant stumbled as metal glinted like hope. Gwen said, "Hold steady, ladle the line first." Chadwick asked for more details, and Tiff happily explained the infamous scene by the stairs, her voice calm, because control lived in telling. With each sentence, Marge pulsed the valve and Garbanzo re-aimed the racks, turning the washer into a polite catapult. Gwen streaked down the line, handing spoons to waiting hands and reminding mothers to blow on stew so no one burned. Stan lunged for a runaway rack, slipped on spilled broth, and went down under a pile of neatly nested plates that locked him flat. Tiff kept talking, oblivious. A final volley clanged as spoon after spoon rained back into bowls, and the crowd rejected the fork-only edict with the unanimous force of hunger. Gwen and Chadwick circled Tiff, while she kept talking about the final acts until her voice cracked and she realized no one listened anymore. The town guard, newly confident, stepped up and relieved her of the bullhorn. They marched Tiff and Stan into the hotel lobby to face charges of coercion, theft, and endangering the soup lines. Consequences waited as certain as sunlight. Repairing dry thistles rhythm took the rest of the day. The goats ran the washer like conductors, dishes clinked in clean relief, and spoons slid through suds with less smugness than Chadwick had accused. Gwen and Chadwick flew crate routes twice as fast, returning spoons to caches along the migrant trail. For ceremony, the last water balloon of the day popped over the hotel steps, washing bullhorn residue into the gutter and cooling a pot of stew too hot for small hands. Chadwick said, "That's better." The town restored what the rabbits had broken. Soup kitchens reopened with lines that moved smooth as creek water, and elders told famine stories that kept everyone humble. The council posted new rules about noise, none of which included slogans. As punishment that fit, Tiff and Stan were assigned months of hauling water to refill the tower and inflating balloons for harvest festivals, under supervision and without microphones. Stan whispered, "I prefer clipboards to buckets." At twilight, Gwen and Chadwick perched on the windmill and let their feathers settle. Gwen admitted that spoons had looked smug to her when she was hungry, not because they were arrogant, but because she felt powerless. Chadwick said he had called them smug to keep from saying he was scared of failing her. She laughed softly, and the anklet bell chimed like a small star. He said, "I won't miss the slogan." Garbanzo and Marge opened the door of their chuckwagon school the next week, teaching anyone who would listen the fine art of loading dish racks without bitterness. They credited Gwen for mediation and Chadwick for humility, and credited each other for not rolling away in opposite directions. The washer design became a community project, with extra trays that could double as shields or shelves when needed. Marge said, "Courage meets the jets head-on." Garbanzo grinned and nodded. On their final delivery that month, the Falcons glided over the migrants' camp and saw children eating stew without fear of spills. In the town square, the water balloon ceasefire sign was retired to the museum with a new plaque that read, "Use with care, break for kindness." Gwen told Chadwick that spoons were not smug, they were steady. He agreed and tucked the wildflower deeper under his band, still saving it from their first secret rendezvous and now, from the wind that carried no catchphrase. Gwen said, "Steady wins this town back, every day." All the slop in this video was generated using AI. This disclaimer is purely information and does not celebrate the technology. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment the word slop to support more stories from Dry Thistle.